Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our final segment of today's show on the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. And it is our first ever deep dive into a wide receiver room in the NFL. Now, this wide receiver room has been talked about a lot in terms of how the target share will look in the setup. But I think that how you view this wide receiver room will translate to each of these guys' main attributes and how they appeal to A, quarterback Caleb Williams, and B, a guy who I'm all too familiar with as a Seattle Seahawks fan, new offensive coordinator Shane Waldron for the Chicago Bears. So let's do a little deep dive into this Bears wide receiver. Talk about DJ Moore. His first season as a Chicago Bear, topped 1,000 yards. A career year for him at 15 end zone targets, sixth most amongst all wide receivers. And to top it off, he had a very high, I believe, 37% air yard share as well. That just goes to show that his first season in Chicago Bears uniform was very comfortable for him. But now you add one of the most experienced wide receivers in the NFL entering his age 32 season in Keenan Allen in the mix. Also top 1,000 yards. Second best fantasy season of his career at age 31. Wide receiver 3 in fantasy. And yes, he was an aberration of the LA Chargers, one of the best receivers, one of the bright lights for them last season. Always a reliable target, Keenan Allen. But it does merit consideration that if Keenan Allen could continue to do this with a guy who's projected to be very similar, maybe even better than a guy like Justin Herbert and Caleb Williams, what's the floor for a guy like Keenan Allen if he should reproduce and replicate some of the numbers that he had in his age 31 season from LA? And then, of course, you draft 9th overall, kind of as a contingency pick in the draft, guy who's worked with Caleb Williams in the offseason, especially in college for quite some time, and Rome Odunze, who also topped 1,000 receiving yards, albeit at the University of Washington and not at the NFL level just yet. So, this three-headed monster that I'm talking about, Moore, Odunze, Keenan Allen, a lot of people might be saying, well, I might want to stay away from this receiver room because a receiver room like this, you can't necessarily truly project how many targets each of these guys will get. But I say otherwise. I say you should go deep into it, diagnosing how this wide receiver room could pan out, because this wide receiver room is so talented. No matter who gets the lion's share of targets in this wide receiver room, it's definitely going to be one that produces a lot of good stats, especially in fantasy. So let's start off with DJ Moore, a guy who I drafted. I believe I drafted him in the 5th or 6th round in my draft. I wasn't scared of him because I said, hey, DJ Moore, yes, he's going to have a lot of competition. Yes, he's going to have to contend with the fact that Odunze brings that rookie kind of touch and magic. Caleb Williams worked with him in the offseason. Keenan Allen just brings his level of experience. His many years in the league. I believe this is his 11th season as an NFL starting wide receiver. I'm kind of not the biggest commodity anymore, even though I had the experience of playing with the Chicago Bears system. But I still think that DJ Moore profiles as the wide receiver one because of the fact that he's not necessarily just walking the walk of boasting his experience as Chicago Bear. He really is a truly good wide receiver, whether it be his speed, his versatility, his verticality, his route running abilities. I truly believe in DJ Moore. And I think that whether or not he gets the lion's share of the targets, he will still be, in my mind, the Bears wide receiver one. And then let's talk about Allen, because Allen can really line up anywhere. I like him kind of more in the slot because of his savvy and ability to be a solid route runner. For Caleb Williams, a guy who can get open by using route running, using the complexities of the playbook, and going beyond, just what he sees on the field. That's why I think that Keenan Allen's also going to be an option. I don't necessarily think he's going to be the wide receiver 3 this year because, come on, a lot of people in their age 32 seasons do show signs of decline, even though 6 of them since 2000 have had 20-plus fantasy points averaged in their age 32 seasons. I just can't see Keenan Allen immediately transferring to the Chicago Bears, no matter how promising they look, and being a wide receiver 1 at his current age. With that being said, he definitely brings the most experience out of anyone on this lineup. And then Rome Odunze, because he is the biggest question mark. He will have the most to prove out of all of these wide receivers. I think that what I really loved about him at the University of Washington is his body control. Out of all of these guys, I think that he can really exploit defenses with the way he understands the path of the football. And I think that he's going to be a huge deep threat. His verticality as well. He's not the fastest guy, but I still think that he projects as their best deep threat in this offense. So that's just my analysis. Let me know what you think in the comments if you think otherwise. But when I look at them as a trio, and I look at, like I said, the new offensive coordinator in Shane Waldron, who I'm not too fondly familiar with at Seattle, but definitely has a lot of experience in this league nonetheless. I think that there is opportunity here for Caleb Williams to really kind of parse out who best fits the profile of making me most comfortable as a passer. Who will I always know will get open early and often for me and set the precedent for me as a rookie quarterback, because that's still what he is. As otherworldly as people make him sound, he still is a rookie quarterback, and he hasn't proven anything to us at the NFL level just yet. So, with these 3 weapons, if I'm Shane Waldron, who has used so many 3 wide receiver sets, not to great effect in Seattle, but who has used so many 3 wide receiver sets, here's what I would do. I would, as Poet, Sears, and Sages says, DJ or DK for flex. Don't tempt me here, because both of these guys have been screwed over by, or will be screwed over by Shane Waldron. So this is a weird question because I like both of them. Okay, I think that right now DK isn't the better setup in terms of how many targets he could see, and I just don't know with DJ Moore. But I still can underestimate DJ Moore. But at the end of the day, I would take DK, and it's not my Seattle bias. I would take DK as my flex option because of, his ability. And also, he's never really failed in terms of where he's finished at season's end in terms of fantasy positioning. He's always been kind of that wide receiver 15 to 20 range, whereas DJ Moore could tend for more volatility. And getting back to DJ Moore, I think that DJ Moore out of all these receivers could line up anywhere. And that's what makes him really more of a wide receiver 1 than people think. Because of his ability to line up outside, line up in the slot, really be creative in terms of how he aligns. So that just goes to show the diversity that he could bring. Shane Waldron just has to use it correctly, unlike what he did in Seattle. But that's enough of me complaining about Shane Waldron. Rome Odunze, I think his role is simplest. Just be that deep threat. Go long. If Caleb wants to connect vertically, if you believe you have a matchup, a mismatch, whether it be a third-string corner or someone like that, go along with Rome Odunze. And hopefully that connection between him and Caleb Williams shows out in that regard. And with Keenan Allen, just allow him to run routes. Just allow him to use his intelligence and nous to get open down the field. But if you had to present these 3 wide receivers and say, hey, I'm picking someone in fantasy, even though I turned Poet, Sears, and Sages down, but that's a different question about where he fits as a flex player. If you had to sit each of them down and talk about them as players, I think that DJ Moore irregardless of experience, profiles as someone who I would like. And it's just because of that ability, like I said, to line up anywhere. I'm not saying that it will project for the lion's share of the targets in the Bears wide receiver setup, because I can't really project that. I don't necessarily know what they want to do with the future of this team. But it definitely speaks for something to have that experience and to understand what this offense might want to look like as it enters a new horizon. And so you can make of this what you will, because it really is going to be a hard wide receiver room to diagnose. But that's just my 2 cents. Let me know what you think in the comments. That will just about do it for today's edition of the show. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for your lovely comments. I've been Christopher Shepard. This has been the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the show on the network if you have not already. Huge support to all concerned. Thank you to the GSMC Sports Network for allowing us to stream their shows. Check us out on all social media platforms. But like I said, this has been the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. I've been Christopher Shepard. We'll be back better than ever tomorrow, same time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, with another great show. Thank you all for tuning in.